Welcome to Reddit Topics, where we make videos from comments on Ask Reddit. Plus, I may tell a joke every now and then. So, if you enjoy the content, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Let's get into the stories. Today, we're gonna be reading comments from the post Psychologist. What are some of the creepiest mental conditions you have ever encountered? The worst thing I have actually encountered in terms of creepy was a little developing sociopath. He had history, fire, animals, sex, and was apparently high in callous and unemotional traits. He was about 11 when I first met him, so no one was going to call him antisocial personality disorder or anything, but that's what he looked like he was growing into. Anyway, the kid is incredibly funny, smart, and charming. No one can believe what his previous school and doctors were saying about him. I was new there, so I was taken in as well. Then one day, he got in trouble for stealing, and we had proof on camera, but he didn't know that. I'm sitting in as a witness and security while he's going through his whole series of emotions: surprise, indignation, fear, anger, etc. as he pretends he has no idea as to why he's being accused. Then we show him the tape and he just stops dead, blank expression, and says something to the effect of, "So what? You were just wasting my time?" It was another voice, a completely different personality coming out of this kid. Like you flipped a switch. I've seen some things, but that moment was creepy as hell. I'm not a psychologist, but I was in a mental institution for attempted suicide. Lots of bad things had happened to lead me to that choice. Please don't judge. But as I was saying, there was this girl there named Anna, and she would comb her hair in the morning and talk to herself. Sometimes she would start to violently scream at herself. One time, she grabbed her hair as if it wasn't her pulling it and forcefully bashed her head repeatedly into the mirror screaming, "Love me, love me." Not a professional, but a friend of mine is suffering from Capgrass delusion. We moved apart several years ago and hadn't been in touch very well. I knew she was going through some stressful times. I had a couple of phone calls with her where she was worried that her computer had been hacked, but it seemed reasonable. Then one day, she called and told me that her husband had been replaced with an imposter. She wanted me to fly to visit her so I could see him with my own eyes and confirm for her that it wasn't really him. Talking to her is simultaneously fascinating, unnerving, and heartbreaking. The worst part is, while she is clearly not correct about her beliefs, she is quite consistent in them, and they are utterly real in her mind. Imagine how terrified you would be all the time if you were certain that the most important person in your life was a stranger with mysterious, nefarious motivations. Imagine going to bed every night to someone you thought was out to get you. Imagine spending all day desperately trying to find your husband because he must be out there somewhere, right? Nobody's been diagnosed with this in 40 odd years or so, but it's still taught in most undergrad courses because it's a really good example of a culture-specific disorder. It's called Windigo psychosis, and here is how it goes down. You're a young male in an Algonquin tribe. It's been a long, cold winter, and your whole tribe is starving. You and your hunting partner have been out hunting for moose or deer or even bear if you have to, but you've totally struck out. You're starving, he's starving, and you've seen the way he's starting to look at you over the fire at night. So you do what you have to do before he does. You kill him and eat him. You know what happens when you eat another man, but you're starving and it's cannibalize or die. So you eat him and the Windigo comes and possesses you. You're hungrier than you were, hungrier than you have ever been before, but the only thing you're hungry for is more people. So you go back to your tribe and one of two things happen. One, You tell someone and they attempt to cure you by having you eat melted bear fat until you vomit the heart of ice you now have because you are a Windigo demon. 35% of reported cases were cured by this method. Number 2, you don't tell anyone. Got back to your tribe and attempt to kill and eat a family member. You will eventually be stopped and killed during your murder cannibalism rampage, and your remaining family members will burn your body and scatter the ashes to prevent the Windigo from possessing them too. The other 65% of reported cases. I am a paranoid schizophrenic. I don't believe there is anything scarier on the planet than an episode. Nothing is more terrifying than being betrayed by your own mind. The things you hear and see, it's awful. I was 12 or 13 years old and I was laying in bed trying to sleep, but I was uncomfortable and couldn't get myself to doze off. As I'm laying there, a shadow moves across my vision. Instinctively, I turn to look at it. The dark figure comes closer and sits at the end of my bed. Thankfully, at this age, I did not see a face. It was a woman entirely in black. She sat and she watched me for the entire night, the entire time whispering to me, "They hate you. No one loves you. Kill them. The kitchen, the knives, daddy's gun. End it. You can't run. I will find you." Something tells me I should have screamed for my mother or father for help, but I couldn't. I believed what it told me, but I did not do what it said. I have triggers now that I've noticed. For me, basements are the root of evil in my head. The most common hallucinations being of a little girl. She leads me to a hole in the floor where she drags me under. When I come back up, I always try to end it. My worst episode occurred when I was in Walmart. I made a huge scene and I had to be taken away by ambulance actually. I had been shopping for something for dinner when all of a sudden, everyone I saw around me turned and looked at me. They gathered circling around me. I couldn't break through. They were telling me to kill myself. I remember waking up in a hospital after that. My mother tells me I dropped to the floor and started screaming and clawing at my wrists. A lot of people know about phantom limb syndrome, in which someone continues to feel as if their limb is still there after it had been amputated, often in great pain. Another interesting one that not many people know about and is almost kind of an opposite is body integrity identity disorder, which is when a person has extremely strong feelings that one or more of their limbs does not belong to them, despite being functional, and often they really want to amputate. From their descriptions, it seems that it is actually very psychologically painful, and sometimes to the point that they will self-amputate because no doctor is willing to amputate a healthy limb. Reactive attachment disorder. I worked at a group home for kids with this disorder, and it was creepy before I fully understood it. Children who have suffered severe abuse and neglect early in life often have the ability to form healthy attachments to caregivers or anyone destroyed. Some of them would cling to me, call me mommy, and beg to come home with me 30 seconds after I met them. Others would refuse to talk to anyone, hurt themselves and others, set fires, and act out any chance they could. Sometimes they would improve enough to be sent to foster homes, only to have their behavior come back worse once they are placed in an unstructured family setting. Fatal familial insomnia is pretty scary. Suddenly, you just start not being able to fall asleep and you're gone within 7 to 36 months. You gradually lose the ability, along with a number of other symptoms over time, until it eventually, at the end of the last stage, you will have not slept in a long time, will have been hallucinating and suffering from dementia and eventually die. Only 40 families, about 100 people have this disorder. Also, if you have it, there is a good chance you have kids by its onset, making the disorder pass down even further. Scary stuff. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. I'll see you on the next story.